Clean and simple ACC races. Clemson in, North Carolina on the verge, with Pitt still hoping and wishing and praying. Tigers aim for more, though. Why no North Carolina talk, though? UNC's 9-1 record impressing few at this point. But, of course, they've got the ACC championship game. Bowl positioning, 8 eligible. Beamer needs 1 to conclude a stellar career. We bring in Cam Underwood of the State of the U and also Joey Weaver from the Rumble seat. This is ACC Breakdown. We come your way every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock Eastern time to talk up the ACC with the best bloggers in the conference. And, guys, I got to say, I thought it was going to be a cut and dry show. Not a whole lot to talk about. Clemson's won the Atlantic. North Carolina's all but won the Coastal, but you gave me some hope for a really good show right before we hit the record button because we've got some good things to talk about here. So let's start with, of course, the college football playoffs, because that seems to be the staple conversation throughout the week, regardless of what team you root for, what conference. Cam, your thoughts about the rankings? You can go outside the ACC if you'd like, but is Clemson firmly number one? I know that they are in the committee's eyes. Are they in your eyes? And what about North Carolina at 17?
Well, these eyes saw Clemson in person give the Miami Hurricanes the worst loss in program history a few weeks ago in the 90-year program history of my Hurricanes football. And, yeah, they're legit. They're super legit in every phase of the game. So I think that Clemson should be the number one team. I think they are the number one team. And I really don't necessarily think there's much conversation about that. For me, you look at the number 4 slot, I get why Notre Dame is in there at the number 4 right now. For me, I would put Iowa in front of them for the simple fact that they're undefeated. And I know you get, okay, Notre Dame went to Clemson and lost by 2 points or a field goal or whatever. Yeah. As we sit here right now, I would put Iowa in there. And both teams still have a way to have it work out. So, if they end up with Iowa being undefeated and they win the Big Ten Conference, then, then out goes Ohio State. Or if Ohio State wins, then that knocks out Iowa. So, but we're in the middle of the season, and this is only created so that we have things to talk about, and that's perfectly fine. North Carolina at 17, saw them, again, beat the snot out of the Miami Hurricanes this past week. Definitely a very potent offense and a defense that stifled us for most of the game until, the backups came in the third and fourth quarter. Then we finally got some traction. But, the committee chair, Jeff Long, said, look, there's 2 things working against them. They lost to South Carolina in the opener, which is a complete aberration to their season, but it's still L. And South Carolina, it was so bad that Steve Spurrier quit in the middle of the year because he didn't want to do that anymore. And they've beaten 2 FCS teams. So, if you're looking at that, you lost to a bad South Carolina team, and let's be honest, they're bad. And you've beaten 2 lower-level schools. Yeah, it's going to be tough for them to really elevate. So unless they go through and they blow out Clemson, and I mean 2 touchdowns or more in the ACC championship game, I really don't see them elevate.
Kim, you bring up some great discussion points, and I'd love to jump on them, but I will after I hand it to Joey. North Carolina at 17, Clemson at 1, Joey.
Yeah, I've been saying for several weeks now, I feel like Clemson is definitely a playoff team and probably one of the most, if not the single most complete team in college football. You look around the country, and most teams have some major noticeable flaw in them, and Clemson seems to be the one team that's putting it all together, along with your Oklahoma and your Alabama as well. So that's the thing I'm interested to see is kind of how that all shakes out. But North Carolina, I think, definitely has the capability to play spoiler. They are looking extremely good, and I find it strange that the playoff committee is so concerned about an early season loss, because it seems to me that last year we had a national champion who had a not so great early season loss, and so it's kind of along those same lines of Power 5 team, right out of the gates. You'd like to think that could be looked over a little bit more. To me, 17 is extremely low for North Carolina, who, like Cam said, explosive offense. They're putting up a ton of points on the board. What they did to Duke was not safe for work, type of stuff. And then, their defense is subtly improving. Gene Chizik doing some good stuff on that defense as well. And so I think that this ACC championship game sets up to surprisingly be maybe the most exciting and interesting championship game here in a couple of weeks, whereas before the season, a lot of people were predicting the ACC to be left out of the playoff altogether. So I think that's kind of funny seeing how things develop over several, course of several months here.
It's odd that Florida State's ranked ahead of North Carolina, but North Carolina's got the opportunity because Florida State's already lost the big game of the year that keeps them out of the championship game for the conference. So North Carolina's got it all in front of them. I can agree with a number of debates and discussion points that are out there as long as the particular person or the College Football Playoff Committee in question, in this circumstance, stays consistent. So I don't think they're staying consistent in certain ways. So North Carolina, I think, is getting a bit shafted here. They lost in week 1, as Joey pointed out, last season being a good example with Ohio State and what they were able to do. And even with teams like Oklahoma, they're given a pass losing to Texas by 2 touchdowns and not looking very good in that performance. North Carolina actually played the better game against South Carolina. What matters is the result, I know, but they're supposed to be looking at evaluation of performance on the field, and North Carolina pretty much outplayed South Carolina, made 3 costly interceptions, 2 in the red zone or the end zone, and lost that game. That was a week 1 contest. I just think North Carolina should be higher, and I think we had the discussion several weeks ago that we could kind of see this coming. North Carolina's sitting there like 4-1, 5-1, 6-1, and look at their opponents. They're decent opponents. They should be credited with those wins, but they're all winnable games. They're going to be a favorite, and here they sit. And I like the concept that the committee takes, supposedly, that they strip it all away each and every week, and they rebuild the argument each and every week, so they don't say, well, North Carolina's sitting there at 17, these other teams aren't losing, they're not going to budge. The resume changes each and every week. A lot of these teams play backloaded schedules across the country, and they'll be given credit for those big wins once they play those games. I'll throw you my top 16 and see if you guys react at all to this. I got Florida State at 16, Utah 15, Stanford 14, Houston 13, North Carolina 12, TCU 11, Baylor 10, Michigan State 9, Oklahoma 8, Notre Dame 7, Florida 6, Alabama 5, Oklahoma State 4, Ohio State 3, Iowa 2, Clemson 1. That's my top 16.
Yeah, I think Notre Dame a little low there at 7. Everything I've heard has got pretty much either them or Oklahoma seems to be in a battle for the 4th spot. And right now, Notre Dame seems to have a little bit better of a record, with their only loss coming by 2 points at Clemson in a monsoon, whereas Oklahoma's lost by 2 touchdowns to a really bad Texas team. And so I personally, I think I would put Notre Dame over Oklahoma right now. But to me, Oklahoma needs to win this week, and then following that, they need to win the Bedlam game. And the Bedlam game, maybe whoever wins that, assuming neither team loses that one this week, either Oklahoma or Oklahoma State is probably a playoff team. But at the same time, I mean, there's no telling what's going to happen. I could still see Ohio State losing to Michigan. I could see Clemson losing to North Carolina in the conference championship. So lots of wiggle room in there. But to me, Notre Dame has to be a little higher than 7. But that's the only real beef I had with it.
Kim, any further thoughts about this before we talk some Deshaun Watson?
I agree with that. You do have to take into account the brand of the team that is being discussed, because at the heart of everything, the championship or the college football playoff is a TV series. So they're trying to get ratings. So, the Notre Dame name matters, and that's why right now they're at 4 ahead of Iowa, even though Iowa, in my mind, has the stronger resume at this current time. But if you're talking brand of Notre Dame versus Iowa, look, it's going to be Notre Dame all the time. And I'm somebody who hates Notre Dame, and I have to give that credit and, recognize that. So in your listing, having them at 7, while that delights me, I don't think that that's necessarily fair, I don't want to say. But some of the other things, having Florida State where they are and North Carolina in there a little bit higher, and the committee, I think that there's some things that I can get behind.
So Cam, basically you're saying this is the way things are. I'm basically saying this is the way things should be. That's
and
arguments.
And that's fair. That's fair. how it is versus how it should be. And it's just really kind of looking at the other side of the coin from a different point of evaluation. But yeah, no, I see where you're coming from.
So basically what I do is I take all the Power 5 teams that are undefeated and I line them up based on, I look at who did you beat, they didn't lose to anyone, and what was the performance on the field. And then if you lost a game, I knock you down because I figure the teams that are undefeated that are taking a knock and necessarily are considered not to be as good. And that's Iowa right now. For whatever reason, you're just not as good because your recruiting rankings tell us you're not good, and your past performance in 2014, 13, and beyond tell us that you're not good, so we're just going to say you're not good, even though you're 10-0. I don't believe in that. If Iowa's not that good, they'll lose a game. And once they lose a game, I'll drop them in the rankings. But for right now, and then I take the win-loss teams and I look at who they beat, who they lost to, was that game competitive, what's the schedule, and that's how I come out with the top 25 that I've got. All right, to another really good discussion I think we've got going here, because all season Leonard Fournette basically was on his way to New York to pick up the Heisman Trophy, and then suddenly runs into the front seven at Alabama, runs for 31 yards on 19 carries, can't do anything, and suddenly he's not the best back in America. But during that game, he basically took the Heisman Award trophy and he handed it across the field to Derrick Henry, and everybody's assuming that Derrick Henry should be the Heisman Trophy winner. Joey, your thoughts about Deshaun Watson in particular, because he plays in the ACC, and just anybody else out there that we're not considering?
Yeah, one of the things that we were talking about a little bit before the show started was about how Deshaun Watson is really a difference maker. And I don't know if you can say that about Derrick Henry. You could probably say it about Leonard Fournette for sure. But Watson, I mean, we saw last year, and he's better than he was then, but we saw last year specifically in games where he would get injured and they'd bring in Cole Stout, and the offense would change entirely. They would go from a pretty well-oiled machine moving the ball fairly well all the way to almost incompetent. And so Watson, I mean, is that good? As a passer, he's really matured here in year two. He's doing a really nice job of spreading the ball, and he knows when to use his legs. He's not taking as much of a beating as he was last year either. Statistically, I think it's pretty quiet, what he's been able to do so far on the national scale, and I think that's probably why he's not getting as much attention. But it's strange at the same time that he's the main playmaker and the biggest name on the number one team in the country, and yet people are still not looking at him as a Heisman contender. And so I think he definitely should be considered that way. I think at the very least he should be going to New York, whether he ends up holding up the trophy or not. And the other thing I look at is that you mentioned Derrick Henry. Now his numbers are going to look great coming out of Alabama. I think one of the things that really we should notice out of that Alabama-LSU game was you said that Fournette had such a terrible stat line. I don't think that was Fournette's fault so much as the fact that he had nowhere to go. And I think it kind of speaks to how much of a running back's success has to do with who's blocking for him. And I think that's really where Derrick Henry is really profiting right now, is from a great front five from Alabama, really pushing people around, creating big holes, and then Henry himself is like a freight train. I mean, he starts moving, and it's hard to bring him down with just one person. And so the numbers are going to look really good, and it's the same thing as Mark Ingram a few years ago, right? He has a lot of room to run and gets big numbers accordingly. But would he do the same thing behind a different offensive line? I don't know for sure. That's why I personally would give Watson the edge. Obviously, there's a little bit of bias, coming from the ACC and having seen the guy, play against my team. But at the same time, should be a good race, and I expect to see Watson invited to New York at the very least.
So, Cam, since we can't make a reasonable case for Brad Kaya this year, why don't you talk to us about Deshaun Watson and what you see out of him?
Yeah, came on this very show earlier in the year and said Brad Kaya was clearly the number one quarterback in ACC when Ryan Cantor, the managing or one of the editors over at our Clemson site, Shaking the Southland, was here. And we went back and forth about that. And, man, I got to eat some crow. Like I said, I was there when they put that 58-0 beat down on us at Sun Life Stadium. And, I mean, I was saying it before the game, I'm a native Michigander. There goes the big house over my head. I was the team of my youth and everything. And I just remember going to see Donovan McNabb, his senior year at Syracuse, play against Michigan. And it just looked like he was in fast forward. and everybody else was like in super slow motion. All the runs were amazing. The passes were on point. Everything that McNabb did was fantastic. And I've not seen a game played by a quarterback that came even close to approximating that until I saw Deshaun Watson just eviscerate Miami a few weeks ago. That kid is good. That kid is special. I mean, don't get me wrong. I didn't say he was bad before. I just thought that he wasn't to this level. But he's grown leaps and bounds from last year. And Deshaun Watson, that's a bad man. I mean, whew, boy, he's special. And all the things that Joey said, I definitely agree with. But so I'm not going to sit here and sing his praises any more than I already have. He's special. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you another candidate from our very conference, the ACC, who I think should be talked about, and that's Dalvin Cook from Florida State. I know that they have a couple of losses. I know that, there's been, Florida State is down for them with 2 losses on the year. They're not the powerhouse team that they were in 2013. But Dalvin Cook is explosive. And when he was a recruit, and Miami was recruiting him in Florida State, and recruiting was my first thing as a blogger, so that's a thing that I love following. So I really was writing about that. And our starting running back, Joe Yearby, played in high school with Dalvin Cook at Miami Central. And Joseph Yearby started. And I know people are going to give semantics. Oh, they ran 2 backs, blah, blah, blah. Look, the first play of the game, 1 running back came out. It was number 22 in front of number 4. So I get that. And I said at the time, 2 years ago when they were recruits, that Joe Yearby was a better pure running back, i.e. feet, i.e. balance, i.e. vision, than Dalvin Cook. But Dalvin Cook is far and away the more explosive player. So you can put him on kick return, punt return, swing pass. If you toss him the ball or get a crease in the running game, he's gone. But I didn't see those instincts. I didn't see that complete running back as a recruit then. And my thing was, if he, and I said this, I wrote this, you can go find it back on State of the U, and I said, if Dalvin Cook finds any of those tangible traits of a running back, he gets the patience to let his blocker set up, he gets, the bounce, the vision to see those holes, to see the cutbacks and things like that, he's going to be a monster at this level. And I wasn't sure that we were going to see that from Dalvin Cook, and boy, have we. He's been up there working on his craft, becoming a better running back over time, and I mean, you just look up and he's gone. 70 yards, 80 yards, and he's starting in between the tackles and waiting for a pulling guard and sitting there and playing the whole shell game, and then all of a sudden, once he puts that foot in the ground and makes a move up the field, you can't catch him. So his development has been spectacular. He's already the single-season leading rusher in Florida State history with only 1,200-something yards, which is phenomenal in my mind, but, Florida State really made their bones throwing the ball, but, this kid is breaking records. He's come back. He's beaten Miami twice. If he doesn't suit up when we play them on October 10th, Miami wins that game, plain and simple. But he was the difference maker that we're talking about. He was the one-foot person. So he has that ability in all the areas of the game, and he's just raised his level, his vision, his physicality, his lower leg strength. He did that thing where his leg block got clipped last year. He did the 1 foot hop. You can't see my feet doing it, but he did the 1 foot hop thing getting to the end zone. Dalvin Cook is a bad man also. Excuse me, I'm sorry. I had a phone call. Mom, leave me alone. But Dalvin Cook, like I said, he was a bad man. And he's somebody who I think should be a finalist for the Heisman Trophy. And my mother is going to be mad at me.
I just want to point out, he finished the Wake Forest game with 2 carries for 94 yards, which is that's a silly statistic.
I try to envision, when I see a great player like that, I try to envision like a really good player in his place, not an average player, like a starting ACC tailback. Put him in the place of Dalvin Cook. Does Florida State, did he make the difference in these games? And against Miami, as Cam would attest to, it came down to the fourth quarter, and Dalvin Cook made plays throughout the entire game that were game-changing plays against Wake Forest. You can't imagine Wake Forest is going to beat Florida State, but, Joey, you just pointed it out. He made game-changing plays. Even against South Florida, man, Florida State was in trouble, and he made game-changing plays against them, against the Boston College defense that was giving up nothing. He made the plays that Florida State needed to win those games. Dalvin Cook's an exceptional player. He's a great player, game-changing type player. My knock on the Fournette-Henry deal is that Leonard Fournette's a great back. He'll probably be like Todd Gurley in the NFL. I wouldn't be surprised if we see that 3-4 years from now. But Leonard Fournette, to your point, Joey, we thought had a great offensive line. They were a great offensive line against just about every other defense they played. And he was making great runs, but he's running through holes, that you could drive a truck through. And then he's throwing DBs and safeties off of him and making ridiculous athletic plays out in the open field, but he's already got 12 or 15 yards space. And then he ran up against Alabama. My opinion of Leonard Fournette hasn't changed because he played an Alabama team, and I watched that game, and he could barely get past the line of scrimmage before he's got 3 and 4 guys on his back. But Derrick Henry, exceptional back, no question, one of the top 3 or 4 backs in the country. But again, replace him with, I could go through 20 backs, they would be almost as productive. Deshaun Watson is a game changer. He may be the best quarterback in college football. He's in the top 3 or 4. I know it's not an MVP award, and the quarterback's the most important position. I'm trying to separate that and just say, okay, best player. Maybe I'm making a little bit more of an MVP award, but I just think Deshaun Watson's a difference maker, and he's playing great football. And to Cam's point, he's made improvement over a year in which he hit like 69% of his passes last year with 14 touchdowns and 2 picks as a freshman, and he's better this year. And Florida State's defense, despite the issues on offense that have led to the 2 losses, they had him pretty well under control. He was still playing a good game, but he needed 2 drives to finish off that game. He made the 2 drives. He extended plays with his legs. He converted third downs with his legs. He made great throws. The kid can do it all. He can throw from the pocket. He makes good decisions. It's not like he's a great athlete, but he makes dumb decisions. No, he's a poised and polished player, and he's a great athlete. Deshaun Watson, I would vote for him to win the Heisman right now. That would be my vote. All right, guys, you want to dive into these games this week? You got some picks for us, too?
As always.
All right.
Make it happen.
Let's run through the ACC. Got Cam Underwood from the State of the U and also Joey Weaver from the Rumble seat. This is ACC Breakdown. We come your way every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock Eastern. Join us on YouTube at Mark Rogers TV and on other SB Nation platforms as well. Okay, so we've got a big one in the conference starting out with North Carolina going to Virginia Tech, Joey. We've talked about the Heels. They're 9-1. They're 6-0. Who knows if they can possibly make a college football playoff? That's up for the committee to decide. But in between here and there, they would be defeating the number 1 team in the country to do it, most likely. So North Carolina goes to Virginia Tech. The Hokies trying to finish strong for Frank Beamer, get him to postseason play again. He needs one more win. North Carolina in possibly a difficult road test taking on Virginia Tech.
Sure, yeah, and in most years, I mean, Blacksburg is always a tough trip to make. Virginia Tech typically gives teams a lot of trouble with their defense. Somehow this is not one of those years, and I'll tell you right now, I just watched Virginia Tech. I thought they were going to give Georgia Tech far more problems on defense than they really did. That defense is somehow not really clicking like we're used to seeing under Bud Foster. Their secondary is not quite as good as we're used to seeing. I think that North Carolina is going to run away with this one, and normally I would think that this was either a very tough game, if not an outright upset. But I really do not see it in the cards for Virginia Tech right now in this year.
Yeah, the Hokies started last season. You mentioned the Ohio State game. They look great on defense. They brought back 2 great corners in Kendall Fuller and Faison. Fuller knocked out for the season early. The great defensive front hasn't played as well as we thought. Virginia Tech at 5-5. Cam hosting North Carolina, playing for a whole bunch.
Yeah, North Carolina's clicking. They've scored something like 120 points in the last 2 weeks. Yeah, I think they're about 120, so 66 and then 59. No, so yeah, they've put up a whole bunch of points and they're just clicking. And you see teams that get on a roll and one win begets another, and I think that just the next bump in the road is going to be Virginia Tech. So yeah, just give me North Carolina and all of the points.
Mm-hmm.
North Carolina 125, Miami and Duke 52 last 2 weeks. All right, Cam, we got Syracuse taking on NC State. Another lost season for the Cuse at 3-7. Wolfpack at 6-4, trying to finish out strong and get to a decent bowl game.
I'm going to go NC State here. I just, Syracuse, like you said, it's a lost season for them. There's a lot going on up there. Jacoby Brissett, the quarterback down at NC State, is playing really well. Their defense has actually stepped up. That's another one of the teams, we didn't mention them earlier, but that challenged Florida State for the majority of the ball game. So they can get up for big games. And I think, they're at 6-4 and they're trying to get to a better bowl game. So, to get to that better bowl game, that means they need to beat a 3-7 team when they pop up on the schedule, and that's this week. So give me NC State.
Yeah, they gave Florida State a pretty good game in Tallahassee, and also about 4 to 5 weeks ago had a third-quarter lead against Clemson and put up 41 points against the Tigers in a pretty good ball game. So, Joey, we got NC State just 2-4 in the ACC, but could finish out 8-4 with a win against North Carolina. That'll be a huge game in 2 weeks, most likely. Hosting Syracuse.
Yeah, Syracuse is one of those teams that is entirely different between home and away games. I mean, at home this season, you just saw them give Clemson a lot of problems at the Carrier Dome. Earlier this year, you saw them give LSU some problems at the Carrier Dome. And then they go on the road, and it's like it's an entirely different team, and they can't do a damn thing, So I don't see them having much of a chance in this game. Give me NC State all day.
Okay, guys. Florida State's beating Chattanooga, right?
Yeah.
No reason for analysis here.
More an over-under of 50 points margin of victory, I think.
Yeah, I think they're safe. Chattanooga's 8-2. Wake Forest 3-7. They've played pretty well in a number of games, including the Florida State game that we talked about. Going to Clemson to take on the Tigers. 10-0, Cam.
Yeah, make that 11-0. In short order, I think. Clemson, they're focused, they're motivated, they're dedicated, all of those cadence and things that you want to say. But, their defense is strong. They have guys like Shaq Lawson and their defensive backs who are fantastic, in addition to Deshaun Watson. Haven't even mentioned the plethora of playmakers around him. The running back Gallman. They got Ray McLeod, who's a freshman. They got Deion Kane, who's a freshman. They have Artavis Scott, who's a sophomore, and all of those guys that I just mentioned on offense can literally score from anywhere on the field, by themselves. But then you put them all on the field at the same time. Clemson.
So you're basically telling us that Clemson's going to continue to match Florida State, and that's going to continue to be like a mega matchup for the next 3 or 4 years.
I don't necessarily. Well, that depends on how long Deshaun Watson is there and be healthy. But right now, talking about this game, Wake Forest doesn't have a prayer.
Anything else to say here, Joey, about Clemson Wake Forest?
I think Wake Forest defense has gotten a lot of tread as being a pretty good unit. I think they're secretly not as good as everybody thinks they are. They've definitely not put up as many great showings this year as we kind of thought they might. Clemson's senior day at home, they're going to run away with this one. It's a 29-point spread is what I'm seeing right now, and they very easily could cover that.
Cam, Duke's actually an underdog on the road against Virginia. You saw Duke a couple weeks ago, and we haven't heard from you since. So what do you have to say about that play?
Oh man. I forgot that I haven't been on since then, so you guys haven't actually seen my face and heard my voice about that. That was I was sitting right here at home and watched that entire game and was very irate because we got hosed on call after call after darn call. All day long. And, Artie Burns' mother had just passed that week on Tuesday at the age of 44 from a heart attack. Obviously heartbreaking to lose a family member, but, being from a single parent household and lose your mom is just, a terrible thing. And he has a game-winning interception that was called pass interference when the receiver is running a route and he cut the receiver off because he has a right to the ball, caught it, intercepted it. You can't write that script and then they take that one away. There's other penalties and things, and I'm just beside myself. And I had my final score tweet because, I live tweet the games. So I had my final score tweet ready, and I was going to get ready to hit enter and send. And I was just like, oh, okay, they're going to pass the ball around. And, okay, they threw it back. And then that last lateral came from Dallas Crawford back to Cornelder. And I kind of sat here. I was like, wait. Delete. And I'm like, oh, he has blockers. David Njoku had that crack back block. And, I know you see a smile on my face. And I'm just sitting here jumping it down like, oh, no, oh, man. And then he cut it back, and he's just going. And, I'm running around my apartment. I'm screaming. Like, it was fantastic. It was absolutely amazing. And, my downstairs neighbors actually came. They were wondering, it's like, is everything okay? It's late on a Saturday night. You're making all this noise. Woo! That kind of thing. But that was, I think it was vindication for the first 59 minutes and 54 seconds of them trying actively to take the game away from Miami because that's the way that I see it. 23 penalties, the most ever. I know they were a penalized team, but, come on, that was absolutely ridiculous. And I think that it was necessary that those refs got suspended. But, again, to this day, I'm still waiting for the ACC to actually say that there was malfeasance anywhere other than that last play. I'm still waiting for them to come out and say these things. But, see, they want to say, oh, well, they got suspended for the touchdown, but not for anything else. But, hey, you know what? We're Hurricanes. You want to hate. That's perfectly fine. And I'll add to you, my best friend in the world, his name is Nick. He might watch this later. Hey, Nick, how you doing? He is a Duke fan. So we grew up in Detroit watching ACC Wednesday basketball. I was a Carolina basketball fan. He became a Duke overall fan. He still has not picked up the phone when I've called him. And I wasn't even going to troll him about the game. So they're talking weeks later, and I'm going home for Christmas, and I may or may not see him because he does not want to talk to me after that. But, woo! Yeah, good times. Good times.
Joey and I are just sitting here smiling. We're not going to tarnish it with our commentary. If you want to hear it, Cam, you go back to that breakdown show from a few weeks ago, and then you may not like us. But we'll just let you bask in the victory. It's confirmed. It's in the books. It counts.
Exactly. Right. It's in the record books as a win. I know that you guys. Because I watched that show, I know that there was heavy dissent and displeasure in the fact of the victory and in the end. And I understand it from the outside, and I'm sure that you all can understand it from my side of the street also.
Surely. And I went to your Twitter feed at some point in the night. It struck me. Oh, I got to see what Cam has to say about this. And I went to your Twitter feed, and even well after the final, as things came out, it was interesting to follow your series of emotions. That was basically euphoria, but there was a little ire in there when you heard a little backlash.
Yeah, and honestly, and I said it on Twitter then, and I will reiterate it now. The fact that people were upset was for no other reason than the University of Miami won that game. And if you look to the Nebraska game against Michigan State, which was equally as egregious a call, and a game of substance, because that cost probably Michigan State a chance at a playoff spot, because they were undefeated going in there. So a game with equally as bad a call and of subsequence, and nobody said anything. And, you're talking about it on Good Morning America, the CBS Morning News, every single show on ESPN, every single show on Fox Sports, every single radio station in some podunk town is talking about it. Everybody's, well, Miami is not relevant. Then why are you talking about us then? And the anger came only from the fact that we were the team that won that game. And from that, people, oh, well, you have people at ESPN, Heather Dinich and others saying, to make it right, the University of Miami should forfeit a game. What? What? Are you kidding me? You want to talk about a single play, but you don't want to talk about any other play for causality? You want to go back, and Mark, I know, and we've talked about this, you want to go back and reverse things? Because then I need a championship ring in 2002 if you want to go back and you want to reverse calls.
I knew that was coming.
Of course it was coming. I will gladly trade you that kick return from the Duke game for my national championship that we were robbed of in 2002. You want to talk causality?
One distinction.
No.
Pass interference is not reviewable.
Give me my ring.
Pass interference is not reviewable. Watching a guy's knee go to the ground, that's reviewable.
Whatever.
I wasn't going to go there, but you went there.
My point is this. Everybody said, okay, all of a sudden now we need to go back and look at things in this instance, in this microcosm, because it was the University of Miami, because people still hate the University of Miami who aren't Miami fans. Everybody else hates us, and that's perfectly fine with me. I said it, let's be jerks. You want to hate, then hate on me. I'll be fine with that. But, I mean, but I'm not going to sit here idly by and watch you, not you per se, but watch people bash my alma mater and just sit there and say, oh, yeah, well, you're going to bash us. No, I'm going to swing right back. And that's what I did on Twitter.
In my opinion, it was a blown call. You can't do anything about it. It was a blown call. I guess it was a blown call. I didn't even know. I had all these other people finally show me still images that showed that it was a blown call because I couldn't tell from watching the replay. I thought I can't tell if his knee's down. Anyway, my thought is you can't change a decision once the game's over. And for anybody out there that is taking that stand because it's Miami is ridiculous. I try to be fair and balanced and just, regardless of the team involved, just do the right thing.
But and for me, and somebody, Roger Sherman from SB Nation, one of our colleagues, he put it up. Rule 1.1, subsection 3A, is when the referee signals the game final, the game is final. So you didn't even have to dig into the college football rule book. It's on page 1 of Rule 1.1. But again, it is what it is. So, people came at me, and I played a little hater Gallagher, like Mike Jones likes to say, and I just had to, shoot him down on my timeline and keep it moving. But, so it was an emotional time, and, hey, it was fun.
Yeah, look at this emotion, Joey. This is like 2 or 3 weeks later. Why I didn't have this guy on that night? Man, I'm a dummy. That would have been a great show.
I was going to say, I'm sitting here watching Cam go through this whole, euphoric recollection of this moment, and just all I can think of is me watching Lance Austin run that ball down the sideline against Florida State. I mean, and that was just a week beforehand. I mean, I'm just sitting here, bringing me back. So thanks, Cam.
Hey, that's what I'm here for, and that's what sports is all about. Like, yeah, you have the lows of getting blown out at home by Clemson and on the road by North Carolina, but man, I will never forget where I was for that game.
Mm-hmm.
But the last point I'll make, Cam, is you have to admit, and I think you stated this already, that it's different when you're emotionally involved. It's your team versus if that would have been Oregon and Stanford, and you're just as a college football fan who looks at the rules and the way things should play out, you may have a slightly different take on it.
No. The call is the call, and you would have to live with it. Just like the 23 calls that went against Miami, like the 5 calls on the last drive that went against us and took away that game-ending interception, took away a 4th down non-conversion, took away another close ball that could have been intercepted up the other sideline. Just like Miami, myself, and all of my colleagues would have had to swallow it if we would have lost that game. And I didn't even mention the fact that the quarterback might not have got in on that last touchdown because it's still not, it was not clear. And I'm not going to point to that and say, oh, yeah. But if those calls would have went against us and we would have lost, then it would have been sour grapes. It would have been tough. You got to suck it up and move on. So I'm on the other side of it, and we had a call that benefited us, so everybody else suck it up and move on, just like we would have had to if it would have ended up in the Hurricanes' loss.
You know why? Because that was the last play of the game. That's why that happens. And you might be right. It's because it's Miami for some people, but it's also because it's the last play of the game, and they don't care about how you got ripped off in the third quarter. That's how people think.
Yeah, I mean, and again, that's fair, but I point to the first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter, throughout that game. But, hey, we still have that return and that block. And that cutback. Woo! Good time.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was crazy stuff. All right, guys, we'll blow through these games.
Okay.
Duke going to Virginia. The Blue Devils have kind of fallen apart since that play, Joey.
They really have. They looked entirely deflated against UNC. They looked pretty bad again last week. I mean, it's hard to pick Duke at this point, but at the same time, I mean, Virginia is working off of so little, positive to speak of, and yet I don't know. I don't know who I like in this game. Virginia being at home kind of tempts me to take them, but I think I'm going to stick with Duke. Just the better team. I don't think particularly highly of Duke, and I'm not shy about that, but I'll take them to beat Virginia even on the road.
Hey, Joey, we've got probably the most competitive game, at least on paper, in looking at the records, with Louisville at 6-4, 5-2 in the conference, going to Pitt to take on the Panthers. They're 7-3. They're 5-1, so they need a slip up from North Carolina. Plus, they need another slip off from North Carolina since they lost a head-to-head. So it's probably not going to happen for the Panthers, but they're the lone team that could catch North Carolina.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Louisville's offense has had a lot of problems this year getting out of second gear, and it doesn't make a whole lot of sense because the talent is very much there. Quarterback skill positions. The offensive line has had quite a few problems all year, and I think that's probably why Pittsburgh wins this game. It's not going to be a high-scoring game. I think Pittsburgh's defense is going to have a pretty easy time stifling Louisville's offense, but at the same time, Louisville's defense is pretty good, and Pittsburgh offense is not anything really to write home about either. And so I think I take the Panthers to win a low-scoring one, but I'll stick with them to beat Louisville this week.
Cam, we've got a Pitt team that's you're going to see in a few weeks against Miami. They're taking on Louisville. Both teams firmly in bowl position, trying to better their status.
Yeah, that's a tough game for me. Pitt runs the ball really well, but just like Joey said, the Louisville offense isn't one that really engenders fear from the opponents, and they have 4 or 5 quarterbacks literally who have played this year. Lamar Jackson, who was a kid from Boynton Beach, Florida, down here in South Florida, who I saw play in high school. I think that he's the future for them. And he's a dual threat kid, definitely using his legs and his arms to equal success right now. But they're rotating. They're going to Bowling, they're going to Bonifant, they're going to Jackson. They're really unsettled. So I'm gonna have to go. The other way. I forgot. I was talking too much. And I'm sorry. And the video from the return is going in this other window too. So had me distracted. Pittsburgh. There we go. Pittsburgh with the win.
All right. All right, we understand anything that comes out of your mouth from here on out, Cam, based on your tirade for 10 minutes.
No, hey, come on, I could be professional. I'm going to close. Okay, so here we go. Close. Good. I'm fully back.
All right, we got Notre Dame. Speaking of you being a professional, Cam, we know you hate Notre Dame. So give us your objective opinion on the Irish and their hosting BC.
Objectively, they're a better team. They are on their third quarterback with Deshaun Kaiser, but they do have C.J. Prosise and a very potent running attack. Will Fuller, at wide receiver, said that he's going to come back for his senior year, which is remarkable to me because I think that he's a top 15 pick coming out this year. But, so a multifaceted offense that is very potent, and then a defense which just gets after Jalen Smith at linebacker and all his friends on that side of the ball. They swarm. And this is going to be a dogfight. This is going to be an old school, old-fashioned, bare knuckles in the street knockdown, drag-out fight because, like we've been on previously with Dan Rubin from BC Interruption, the other times I've been on, Boston College, they come to play defense. They bring their lunch pail. They wear a hard hat. They're going to hit you in the mouth. So this is not going to be an easy game for Notre Dame, but I think that they just do eventually have too much on the offensive side for Boston College to really keep up with them scoring-wise because Boston College, I mean, they probably couldn't score 10 points against some FCS teams just because their offense is horribly broken and without talent. So I think it's going to be a close game for a while, and I think in the second half, mid-third quarter, fourth quarter, Notre Dame's going to pull away and they're going to end up victorious.
In future weeks, it'll be a good discussion if Notre Dame stays with one loss as to whether you guys will take any pride in Notre Dame possibly moving on to the college football playoffs since they have that connection to the ACC. But for now, it's Boston College in Fenway Park, we should add, taking on Notre Dame, Joey.
Right, yeah, so this is technically a home game for Notre Dame. It counts as one of their home games, but it is being played in Fenway Park, right in Boston College's backyard. This one strikes me as one, Boston College has certainly one of the top 10 defenses in the country, if not maybe a top 5 unit. They're currently ranked in 3rd in the country in scoring defense, which is impressive considering how little their offense has been able to hold onto the ball. This is one that strikes me as an extremely low-scoring game that Notre Dame could win by 3 touchdowns without scoring 25 points. I think that their defense is good enough and Boston College's offense bad enough that Notre Dame could very easily pitch a shutout and win by 3 touchdowns by only scoring 21 points or 24 points or something like that. So give me Notre Dame. That's a fairly easy one for me this week.
Okay, guys, prior to the season, I was looking at the ACC Coastal as a 4-team race, meaning Miami and Georgia Tech included with Virginia Tech and North Carolina. So what do I know? Right now we sit with Miami at 3-3 and Georgia Tech at 1-6, Joey. So I expected this one to factor in heavily. It doesn't. This is the game we've got between your two teams.
Yeah, it's been quite the season for Georgia Tech, to say the least. I certainly haven't ever seen this from Georgia Tech, and I'm not even sure that Paul Johnson has seen anything like this from any team that he's ever coached. They're going down to Miami. They're currently 3-7. There's actually been a lot of talk in Georgia Tech circles about if a 5-7 Georgia Tech team could make a bowl game. There's a lot of scenarios where there's not enough bowl-eligible teams, and they start having to dip into 5-win teams to get to bowl games. Georgia Tech having a relatively high APR would be one of the first teams that they would pick. That said, that would also require winning out against Miami and Georgia, 2 teams that are going to be more talented than Georgia Tech is. I look at this week's game, and Paul Johnson's teams have never won against Miami in Miami. They have actually won in Miami. That was last year in the Orange Bowl. I need to remind you of that just to keep my own spirits alive. But they go to this week to take on Miami in Coral Gables, and even though they've never won down there against Miami, I somehow think that they're going to pull it off this week. And the thing that really gets to me is I think this is an effort thing. I think that Miami at this point has probably quit, has probably kind of punted on the season a little bit, with some of the tough losses they've faced against Clemson, against Florida State, etc. Lost their coach, Al Golden. And Georgia Tech has just continued to play all year, and they've lost 7 games, but really only 1 or 2 of them where they did not have really much of a shot, even at the end. Several of these games have ended with Georgia Tech having a chance to go down and have a game-tying or game-winning score. They just haven't gotten there. I think it's that effort that gets them over the hump this week. I think they get to 4-7, and then they go to clean old-fashioned hate next week against Georgia, and that's the game that they play for pseudo-bowl eligibility. And so that's kind of how I see this working out in my mind, and that's what I'm taking Georgia Tech to win the first time ever under Paul Johnson in Miami against Miami.
All right, Cam, you heard Joey. The Tech's 3-7, Miami at 5-5, 2-4 in the ACC. Oh, that's 6-4 and 3-3 in the ACC. I'm sorry, I couldn't resist. Cam, take it away. Georgia Tech at Miami.
I definitely hear a lot of things that Joey is saying about the Hurricanes from my perspective for this year. I think that the thing for me is not going to be an effort that decides the game. It's going to be oh my goodness, I had such a great line and I just forgot it. Anyway, man,
turn the video off. Turn the video off.
No, I turned it off. I promise you I did. It's man. Anyway, I just don't think that there it is. Not E for effort, but E for execution. See, it was a good line. Anyway, missed the mark since I kind of delayed it there. Throughout getting back serious with our discussion, throughout the course of this year, Miami has not stopped the option at all. If you look at the Florida State game, they ran it out. Dalvin Cook, his first long touchdown was a speed option to the left. If you look in the Clemson game, they ran read option and they ran speed option, and they even did triple option with the dive and then the orbit action behind it. So when Deshaun Watson pulled it, then you have option going that way. North Carolina ran option, Duke ran option. Every team that we played has run some kind of option ever since the Florida State game, and we have not stopped it. We have been ineffective, and the execution of the defense, the assignments, and just the tackling has been very poor. And I don't think it's going to be an effort thing, because I think that as opposed to others who see poor effort, I just see poor performance. Our guys are running hard. They're doing things. They're just doing the wrong things, and that's what's leading to some of these gashes and some of these differences on defense, some of these holes that the offenses that we're going against have been able to exploit. So I'm going to be with Joey in this. And even though I think Miami is the more talented team, even though we're the home-standing team, even though this is senior night, I think that our inability to stop the option, I think our lack of execution when it comes to that part of the game is what's going to turn this game in Georgia Tech's favor. And I think that the Yellow Jackets are going to walk away with a victory this week.
You know,
you guys are great. That's why I have you on. Joey Weaver from the Rumble seat and also Cam Underwood from the State of the U, talking ACC in the coming weeks. Of course, we've got a championship game to deal with. We've got bowl games. We've got Heisman talk. We've got college football playoff talk. So definitely we will have some good shows upcoming. All right, guys, appreciate the time. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, guys. Enjoyed it.